Craigus, you are a robot.
There's a certain aspect of cult films that makes them simultaneously off-putting and enjoyable. So much so that they're so bad its goodness ironically makes us not want to look away.
Call 911!
There is a running theme, though, in a plethora of cult films through which this mysterious element can be pinpointed, and this element is stasis.
Who arranged it?
Stasis, or stillness, in terms of camera movement, character movement, and the device of the freeze frame, as a recurring formal element in cult films, illuminates Sigmund Freud's theory on fetishism, specifically through the lens of disavowal, allowing viewers to revel in a marginal taste of subject and style as a result of the way in which stasis inhibits immersion and amplifies the cult experience. Let's start with the concept of static camera, seen specifically in the film Stranger Than Paradise, directed by Jim Jarmusch. This is the second shot of the film. The lack of camera movement, character movement, and cuts is already demonstrated. It is clear that this film in no way strives to replicate traditional Hollywood-style filmmaking. The film follows three characters: Willie, played by John Lurie, Eva, played by Esther Balint, and Eddie, played by Richard Edson, on their muses across the country. Take this scene in particular. Here, Eva just nonchalantly dances through the shot until she is interrupted by Willie and dialogue ensues. As articulated by film historian Jeffrey Sconce in his article Trashing the Academy, using a non-traditional device such as continuous static camera is what allows this film to distinguish itself as a cult object. As seen in a shot like this film in no way replicates the traditional mode of Hollywood filmmaking where 1. The shot would have more cuts, 2. Said cuts would be more dynamic and maybe include a close-up or two, and 3. The camera would move. Now, this film does have a fair share of scenes that are dynamic because of the subtlety and nuance found in its formal choices. A shot like this, in particular, is so dynamic because of how simplistic it is. The shot forces viewers to focus in on two separate things at the same time: Eva changing and Eddie approaching her. This brings up the topic of parametric narration, in which a film systematically manipulates a certain stylistic parameter independent of the demands of the plot.
Do you have a vacuum cleaner?
What?
The film's othering of itself allows viewers to form a relationship with it that entails a level of sophistication not found in fanship of traditional Hollywood films. Thus, a relationship is fostered that earns the film its cult status.
It's kind of like, he's like the general, he's sort of like, he's in charge of the offense.
The scene follows Willie as he's explaining the sport of football to Eva. Not only is the scene shot with static camera, but there is effectively no blocking as well. The scene eventually does cut to show the passage of time, and thus the blocking inevitably changes. But it is more important to note that in this film, static camera is used as a device for a specific purpose: to create a feeling of lethargy and fraughtlessness. The entire narrative simply follows three characters living a fairly menial life. The static camera reflects this in order to match the tone of the characters.
Try your blaster there, Commander.
A film like this obviously isn't concerned with fitting in the canon of Hollywood cinema, as emphasized by this shot where you can clearly see the cameraman in the rearview mirror. A blatant continuity error like this would be cut out in a traditional Hollywood film without consideration. But here it is left in for an unspecified reason, which only enhances the film's style. Similar to the film Stranger Than Paradise, the 2005 psychological thriller, Cachet, written and directed by Michael Haneke, is a film in which the static shot amplifies the overall tone and themes of the narrative. which in this case are suspense and surveillance. The film follows a well-off married couple, Georges and Anne, played by Daniel Otoya and Juliette Binoche, respectively, as they anonymously receive surveillance footage of the outside of their home at various points of the day. Its portrayal of the surveillance footage transforms the film into a bizarre meta-narrative by depicting the subjects and their reaction to seeing themselves as subjects. In the opening shot of the film, the only element that cues viewers into the fact that they are not, in fact, looking at a still image is sound. And oddly enough, this film includes little to no diegetic or non-diegetic sound to begin with. In a scene like this, the static camera inhibits viewers from being completely immersed in the narrative, allowing audience members to sit in the discomfort of its passively eerie tone. A scene like this begins traditionally given the framing of the shot and what it's trying to convey: busyness. The longer the shot goes on, though, the less viewers can easily immerse themselves, due to the fact that the camera lingers on that which the viewer has already absorbed. Again, the lack of camera movement makes the scene feel off, and keeps viewers clueless to the mystery within the narrative. Film theorist Laura Mulvey, in her book Death 24 Times a Second, states that the aesthetics of stillness returns to both narrative and the cinema. Death as a trope that embodies the narrative stillness, its return to an inanimate form extends the cinema, as though the still frame's association with death fuses into the death of the story. Georges and Anne fear harm and ultimately death from this unknown sender, which causes them to break down mentally little by little. Overall, this fear of death is reflected through the static shot itself. A moment in the film that invites the strongest amount of disavowal is this one. Fewer objects fill the frame, so viewers are immediately cued into the fact that something significant is going to happen, and that something happens quick. Disavowal is a Freudian term in which the ego must turn away from reality, and in which the ego is itself modified to accommodate the needs of the id. The id, in this case, is one of the three aspects of personality as theorized by Freud. In a case like this, viewers know very well that what they are seeing isn't real, but just the same they experience it as if it were. Yasujiro Ozu's Tokyo story uses both the static shot and static character movement, specifically the lethargic character, to tell a traditional Japanese narrative on family, loyalty, and loss. Tokyo Story offers a masterclass on how lethargy, through both static camera and static character movement, can have such a profound impact on the overall tone of a film. The film follows the reunification of 3 generations of a family in Tokyo. Its slow, grandiose title sequence, which lasts over 2 minutes long, familiarizes viewers with the slowness and overall tone of lethargy that encompasses the film to follow, from static camera to static character movement, and even through laggardly delivered dialogue. A majority of the scenes in this film are shot with static camera, accentuating the film's tendency towards minimalism and effective simplicity, such as this sequence, in which Noriko, played by actor Setsuko Hara, is cleaning the family home. There are multiple points in the film where the lack of camera movement feels off. During this scene, where the youngest son of the Hirayama family is arguing with Noriko, the argument feels off and unnatural due to the lack of gesturing and general movement on part of the actors. And here, the transition from medium long shot to medium shot feels unnatural because of the time taken between the characters saying their dialogue, in addition to the static movement and static camera. What Ozu does so well is find the perfect balance between scenes that are cinematic and scenes that are simple. For example, a scene like this is not necessarily supposed to feel cinematic. It's supposed to feel familial and real, while a scene like this is cinematic because of its poignancy and slowness. Along with a shot like this, which is simply the camera's view of the outside of this moving vehicle. Overall, the motif of lethargy and the static shot in this film lends not only to the traditional style of Japanese culture, but it also creates an environment perfectly suited for cultists in their knack for memorializing the content that they see on screen. The film Wanda is similar to Tokyo Story in regards to its degree of lethargy. The film follows the titular character played by Barbara Loden, who also wrote and directed the film, as she wanders aimlessly through life, taking in everything with a somber stride and naivety. She, as a character, is deeply pained, for reasons that never become clear to viewers. This iconic shot in the film is peak lethargy for a plethora of reasons. 1. Its slow zoom into Wanda as a subject. 2. Its slow pan as Wanda makes her way up the hill. And 3. The slowness of her pace, all culminating in a shot that lasts almost 2 minutes long. Wanda, as a character, is someone who doesn't really do anything and rather lets things happen to her. She's helpless, but at the same time completely autonomous in what she does. She's oddly at peace with herself. Wanda is a film that has a lot of obtuse meaning, or meaning that cannot be articulated with language. In this case, the obtuse meaning is found within the tone of the film, which is grounded in lethargy. Freeze frames, a device where the shot literally freezes in the middle of action, is commonly used at the ending of films, but is not limited to concluding the entirety of a film's narrative. Freeze frames are commonly used to emphasize a central point of action at any part of a scene, and create in viewers a sense of memorialization through the use of a still image. A prime example of a film that fosters memorialization from its viewers is Chris Marker's La Jetée. La Jetée is a film that consists entirely of still images that form a narrative on post-nuclear war experiments. Certain aspects of the film, such as this, feel eerily three-dimensional due to the juxtaposition of a still image taken of an object caught in the middle of movement. This sequence of shots, for example, adds a layer of perversion and uncanniness in which viewers are intellectually uncertain as to whether or not a lifeless object is actually animate. What Marker's La Jetée does so well is bring these still images to life with the slightest of camera movement, thus countering cinema as a medium. Cult film fanatics revel in this type of content due to the fact that it is not easily digestible. Cult viewers know very well that what they're looking at isn't good, not at least by the Academy standards, but nevertheless, they find entertainment in it anyway. Stasis in cult films is often a result of low budget or low concept. Through stasis, cult films transform the non-traditional into the new, the dull into the layered, and the amateur into the elegant. Thanks for watching.